over to you for the presentation.
All right, thanks Jake and Lisa and Lander. It's really exciting to be here. It's an exciting time, middle of winter, first cold snap. It's a great time to be talking about plants for the future. So thank you all, and I'm gonna dive right in. I have a series of slides. We're gonna move through about 20 slides. And just to give you a sense of what to expect, I'm going to talk about a little bit of my background. I'm going to focus on my past research with the Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society and how that's informing choices and decisions about my intentions and hopes for the Blue Hill Farm. And then I'm going to talk about how the vision I have for integrating agriculture, technology, entrepreneurship, and the arts, which sounds like a lot, but hopefully you'll see after the presentation, it's the only thing I've ever known how to do. So without further ado, we're going to get into the slides. I anticipate this going for about a half an hour, 40 minutes max, and then we'll leave it the latter half for question and answer. So I'm going to just share my screen here. And I'm going to minimize all of you, put you in the corner, and then let's go. Okay.
Bill, would you double check your screen share? For me, I still see the four of us in our presenter mode.
Sure, let's see.
It can be a little glitchy sometimes.
Oh, you're right. And my background. Very unprofessional.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So it looks like it is getting cut off just a tad on my screen. So apologies if that's happening for you, but we'll proceed and see how it goes. So great. Okay, so just to speak a little bit about my background. I've been passionate about agriculture, food production, feeding our communities, decentralizing our agriculture, and the tactics and tools by which we can do that. I've also been involved in arts and particularly music. I see arts and artistic expression as a really important way to tell stories of who we are, what we're doing here, and to access certain what I like to what I feel is emotions that help us move through phases of life that we can't do without the arts. It's in my humble opinion. So what you're going to see is the ways that I'm trying to incorporate that vision for not only me, but as I've discussed with folks from the trust, I was attracted to the Blue Hill community about 15 years ago because I found some support for that type of approach between agriculture and the arts. So I'm hoping to extend that beyond myself with this project. I'll skip through these slides. They're just to reinforce my past points. I've also found support in the University of Maine. I am already a product of the University of Maine, but I recently gave a pitch similar to what I said to you in a doctoral fellowship program, and was pleased to find that they accepted it with an intention to do some work in the Blue Hill community. So I'm working currently on integrating that and at the university, and with my field work happening in outside of the university community specific. One specific area is in Blue Hill. That a little bit about where this comes from. Like, I've always seen agriculture and art as a potential medium to tell stories. I do want to back up and say all of this is taking place, and all of my work is taking place in unceded Wabanaki territories. And I think it's really important that we're always asking the questions of what type of agriculture, what type of food production, what type of food systems we want to create, and what are the voices that we've been leaving out when we do that kind of works. And so the type of agriculture that I've been practicing is one that has been imported from my European descendants, and has been being honed and practiced here, and to some degree naturalized here over the last couple hundred years. And so I just want to acknowledge that part of my work and part of my intention with TILF, which I'll get into the title of TILF a little bit, I haven't introduced that yet, is acknowledging the historical flaws of that approach, and also understanding that there is a wealth of Wabanaki knowledge around how to live here that I don't believe, as a settler here myself, that I don't believe that we've honestly reckoned with how to build those kinds of bridges. And that's part of what I've tried to approach with some of the artworks and agriculture and public art, and why I practice agriculture as an art practice as opposed to only just a farm. These are pictures that you're seeing. I presented a similar thesis to the University of Maine in 2012, and lo and behold, they let me hold them to task and till up their precious mall and plant wheat in hopes of starting some conversations around food production on the campus of the University of Maine. So I'm going to shift now and talk about some of my work with the Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society, which has really been a huge part of my life since 2016. Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society is a statewide organization that it works on campaigns and marketing and promotion of ideas for that can benefit Maine's agriculture throughout the state. Coming from cutting my teeth with farming on Four Season Farm and with Valley of the Stars Farm, which was a sister business to Tinder Hearth in Brooksville, I was really thrilled to see an organization working on a statewide level. Hancock County, in my experience, is ahead of the curve in a lot of sustainable agriculture modalities, but it was really exciting to be able to plug into what MISAS was doing. And so I'm going to just show a few quick videos. One of, well, I'll let the videos speak, and then we'll go back to the actual detail. So I'm going to switch over to a YouTube video now. We're going to skip this ad.
You booked.
Oh no, we're not going to skip the ad. Oh no.
With endless views of snow.
Oh, here we are.
Raise the sheep and the cattle together because they have different grazing habits, and you can get more complete forage utilization on a piece of land with the more different kinds of livestock that you have on it. And I guess my wildlife background tells me that, because the most productive grazing land in the whole world is the Serengeti Plain in Africa, where there's 20 or 30 different species all grazing together. You probably should have, I've got two, but that's better than one, but you probably should have, 6 or 8 if you want to be diverse.
All right. So for many of you probably are familiar, that is the late great Dennis King, original proprietor of King Hill Farm. In MISAS, I discovered an organization that was telling the story of some of these farmers. And so I was thrilled to be able to plug in and do some of that storytelling, use my creative approach and my passion for agriculture together with arts to share information and to tell the stories of farmers of our time. And so that led to a lot of my work with a project called the Sustainable UMaine Agriculture Cluster Initiative, and then a follow-up project I did with MISAS called the Ag Infrastructure and Greenhouse Program. And I'm going to go through some of the outcomes of that program, and I'm going to go through it because those are the pieces that I'm trying to carry forward and develop in Blue Hill on the farm. But this video is just a quick snippet of how I've been able to use those media and arts approach to agriculture. This is a video I produced with the Knack Factory, which is a firm out of Portland, Maine. They also have an office in Nashville, but they're all originally Mainers and recently opened an office in Nashville as well. So we'll do another video. This cuts into the middle of a video on winter produce production.
So we're here in this tunnel that we call BT1, and we have a heating system in this tunnel that has a forced hot air heater, sun air heater. At the end of the day, we pull the covers over the crops, and then at nighttime, as the temperature dips, if it dips down to say 35 degrees, the thermostat will click on and tell the heater to turn on. And then what we have is attached to that heater are a number of inflation tubes that run out of the heater and then run down along the beds, the length of the greenhouse, and those tubes run underneath the row cover that has already been put on. And so when the heater turns on, the forced hot air runs down those tubes, causing them to inflate. And then the tubes actually have a series of small holes run the length of the tube, so it's perforated. And so the hot air sort of distributes the heat relatively evenly across the whole tunnel. Most of our tunnels are relatively low tech, but over the years we have sort of invested in running electricity.
So those are just snippets of some recent work. That's a 7-8 minute video that explains a lot of the outcomes and an arc of this project that I got involved with. And I'm going to go into a little bit further there. All those links are available on the MISAS website, which is linked or available here, as well as some of the fact sheets that I'm going to go through in this presentation. One of the things that's really important, well, before I get into that stat, one of the things that's important that takeaway from this statewide research program that worked with covered agriculture producers of different modalities focused on food production. It's fair to say that other industries such as animal production, and now I can't talk about covered agriculture without talking about cannabis, are also important players in covered spaces in terms of infrastructure. But food producers have a particular set of needs, and that's what we've been focused on here. And from all the high tech, you're hearing a lot these days on my Facebook feed. I'm always seeing this high tech vertical farm got funded 20 million for this operation, and Bowery Greens and Gotham Greens, and these sort of what we're starting to understand as controlled environment agriculture operations, which tend to be very energy intensive, vertical, sometimes use sunlight, sometimes use artificial light, but are coming onto the market in a strong way. And one of the things that we learned through this project is that some of Maine's lower tech designs that focus on soil and sunlight and solar greenhouses are highly competitive with that approach if they are duplicated, if there's more farms happening. And I really do have to acknowledge and credit Elliot Coleman and Barbara Damrush and Elliot's daughter Clara, who's now taken over Four Seasons, for some of that early work and really telling that story effectively. Everything that I am presenting here started from things I've learned from Elliot. I'm really grateful for his work. And after going through all of this research, it's become even more clear that he's right. And so I'm really wanna focus on that. The lower tech appropriate technologies are really relevant to what we're doing here with our agriculture. So I'm going to go through a few of the outcomes of that project. So in 2018, we did a survey of covered food producers to try to get a sense of what they were using. Obviously, if you're growing food undercover, you're extending your season and you're trying, and we want to get a sense of how many people were using unheated tunnels, how many people are using high-tech systems. We've seen some geothermal systems out there. We saw hydronic systems, hot air systems, oil, a lot of oil furnaces heating greenhouses still. Heat pumps are starting to get installed. And there's just such a range of technology out there. So it was actually quite difficult to sift through and understand what's working, what's not, and what are the systems that each are working best in. And so this was a survey we did that was really helpful for that. Although we only got about 30 responses, we'd like to see maybe 300 from the whole Northeast. So we have more work to do there. Now I'm going to go through a few of the key outcomes. So one of the things I produced for MISAS as a result of this was the video and a whole series of fact sheets. There's about 7 fact sheets that focus on key areas of infrastructure design that we feel are really worth moving forward with. And some of that is the work that I'm doing at the University of Maine, trying to find funding to research and install such systems and demonstrate them and run trials within them. And so really quick, I'm going to try to breeze through this. It's a lot of information and it's really dense. So just bear with me and I'm just going to try to skim it very quickly. So hydronic radiant heating is one of the more efficient heating systems for agriculture, as more efficient than air in terms of its ability to hold heat. And so one of the things we're working on here is a hybrid system that can hold and store heat that is run through a series of pipes, where water is run through a series of pipes from a furnace or a solar heater that can provide that thermal heat on days like today. You can run it and it will run it in the daytime and it will keep radiating throughout the night. It's still expensive. You're still heating a greenhouse in the middle of winter, but it's something that can improve the efficiency for those who are extending their seasons and trying to grow year round. This design also, I mentioned as a hybrid design, it incorporates an underground ground to air exchanger type system. And so we're trying to work with combined technologies there. It's another kind of shot of the side. I'll just use my mouse. Here's the tubes that would collect air from the ridge, send it down under the ground. The ground would act as a type of a heat battery, which would create some warmth and insulation. And then in addition, the slab here is heated. In this particular design, there's a slab in the middle too. In this rendering, the middle slab, which is also used for seedling production, whereas the soil in the main part of the production area is to bring plants to maturity. That's the enclosed and insulated version. I want to be clear, this is an expensive proposition, but one that we hope to pilot and learn more about how we can, whether or not it's feasible, and how we can lower the cost of a system like this. Phase change material. You may be aware of phase change, may not. For those who aren't, phase change is like an ice pack in that you'd use in your cooler for a summer picnic, except it works in reverse. It can store heat when it's being created, when it's available, hold that heat, and when it changes phase from a solid to a liquid, it will release that heat. So it's not a heater in and of itself, but it can capture BTUs when they are available, capture thermal energy when it's available, and then release it when it's not. So presumably capture it in the daytime and release it at night. This is a system designed by a company that was formerly out of Biddeford and now moved to North Carolina. And they are testing greenhouse heaters that use phase change material in the lining of the ducts. So there's no actual heating mechanism in this duct system, but the lining of the duct work itself is lined with phase change, and it's not going to heat the greenhouse, but it can give you a small temperature boost, maybe 10 degrees passively. And so that we were looking into that as well. There's a few other systems that are important to note, but one of the things that we discovered through this project is that a lot of greenhouse data collection, traditionally onset and hobo sensors, are very expensive and don't give you the kind of detail that we're looking for in terms of specific detail, microclimates inside your structure. So for that reason, we tried to design some of our own and had some success with that. Additionally, with that same data and those same types of sensors, we're able to interact with the utilities in a structure. Commonly, we all, or a lot of farmers use ventilation, automation, same as a thermostat in your house. But in a greenhouse, it's measuring the temperature and opening a vent or closing a vent. That can go even further if you're using a heating system. You saw Nate Drummond in the video from Six River Farm explaining how his thermostat kicks the furnace on when it reaches 38 degrees at the canopy. Those are hardwired. One of the things that we've been exploring is wireless low-cost sensors. And one of the projects I'm proposing, or I'm trying to see if it may work through relationships with the University of Maine and the Blue Hill community, is to try to take a robotics club approach. These sensors are not complex to build. If for somebody who's interested in a robotics type system. And so we would love to collaborate on something like this with a robotics club at George Stevens or a school or anybody who's interested. We could create our own if we want. Cooperative extension, I've been talking to as well. So what you're seeing here are some screenshots from an app. This is actually developed by Tate Yoder. Tate's familiar to some of you in the community. We worked together on a project at the University of Maine called the Maine Agriculture App Project, which was a spin-off of some of this research to try to see, is this feasible? And what we determined was, yeah, it definitely is. It just needs some development work from folks who are interested. And so we do have test sensors, and we have a set of them that we're using, but we are trying to refine that at the University of Maine. I went ahead and acknowledged Four Season Farm and Elliot and his leadership earlier, but I do want to say that of all the systems that I've designed, that I've been a part of, and some of the ones that I'm designing, this system on the bottom here, which is just a simple Gothic arch tunnel with hoops inside, is gets one of the biggest bang for the buck in terms of an unheated piece of technology that can improve your season and grow certain plants throughout the winter. Another important part when we're talking about putting all of these infrastructure pieces together and sorting through this range of options, we're taking risks with our infrastructure. For a small farm that's dependent on their farm income, or maybe has a small farm income that subsidizes some of the farm income, that's often not feasible to take big risks with new technology unless it's proven. But as we start to see, heat pumps and certain things become more useful, we recognize that there's a need to account for all of this rather simply, to plan for big purchases. Oftentimes, in discussions with other farms in the Saginaw County, in Bodemham, a lot of them were finding that they don't have a lot of cash on hand. Some of them run break-even businesses, but they're really interested in investing in some higher tech systems, and as long as they get a clear return on investment over the course of 2, 4, 10 years, in the same way you would with any sort of business type loan, that some farms would find that attractive to take that route. And so we developed this budgeting and accounting tool. This is just a screenshot of that tool, but it's a free tool. It's available on Misas's website, and it has there's many pages. It's very complex, and also we've tried to make it very simple. So what you're seeing is a master sheet that gives you a sense of overall costs, and you can plug and play your own numbers into this spreadsheet based on the size of your greenhouse and what in your bed space and the various systems. Are you using a solar heater? Are you adding an additional furnace? What is your system? You can plug and play here. It's also cool because it gives you a sense of carbon accounting, as in how much carbon are you putting into the atmosphere. This is a rough tool, and it's based on averages and utility bills, but we are trying to refine this to get a better sense of pollution and its impact. At this point of the presentation, I'm going to shift over and talk more about the farm and how we envision applying some of this on the farm, what I'm hoping to do here, and yeah, so that was a lot of information about Misas, but I do want to just acknowledge the Misas leadership. Nan Kennedy, Stu Smith, Penny Jordan, and David Landman in particular have been really supportive of my approach to this work, and I've been really fortunate to be able to find meaningful employment, to be able to peruse the state and connect with growers from Presque Isle to York, from Four Season Farm to Farmington, to see who's doing what and put it together. All of that makes me all that more excited to get back farming in Hancock County, but and so that's where we'll go from here. So so the vision for the farm in Blue Hill is, as I mentioned earlier, a combination of these technical and entrepreneurial opportunities to grow systems that can support a decentralized, energy efficient, and year-round food production for our communities. That's not new in Hancock County. It's not new in Maine, but having been a part of the farming community in Hancock County since 2008, it's been, it's just, for instance, seeing myself included, how hard it is when you build a nice unheated, double covered tunnel, and then in the second year's October nor'easter, it ends up in the field edge and you have to start again. And so I feel that there's a need for technical assistance, both on a home scale and homesteading level, but also for commercial growers. And that's really important. And one of the questions we're also asking as we try to acknowledge who's not here, who's not farming in Blue Hill, is what role do tribal communities in Maine, and particularly to Blue Hill or Anawanjo, the Passamaquoddy and Penobscot communities, is there a relationship that we can build through some of these food system infrastructure questions we're asking? So the vision here is for a social and educational center of activity for biodiverse agricultural resource conservation, infrastructure design, and entrepreneurship. The mission as intended is to serve as an agrarian and cultural clearinghouse for Blue Hill Peninsula with a bioregional scope and a quest towards improved stewardship of Wabanaki lands and waters. What we're proposing on the farm is operation of a year-round farming research station that can continue some of the work similar to what you're seeing from what I've been able to do with the MISOCs. And that operates together with a youth and career development program, an incubator farm, and a performing arts and event space. And I mentioned earlier that while these ideas, combining them feels like a lot of work, in my experience, it is. Having these conversations together feels like part of an innovation that I've been trying to find life for in my own career, and have been so inspired by so many people who, from kids to elders in the Hancock County community, who are on the same page. So in terms of business structure, what I'm hoping to incorporate 3 separate legal entities. One will be responsible for the ag infrastructure research and entrepreneurial work and workforce development type work. A second is a farm business that I mentioned earlier as an incubator farm. And the third is a seasonal, effectively a summer stage for arts and educational programming. And so because I don't plan on going too much in depth in this presentation about the summer stage, I'm just gonna add on right now that what we're really envisioning is a place to gather, to eat together, a little piece of Tinder Hearth, as I like to say. I am a product of Tinder Hearth in as much as I'm a product of the University of Maine. That's where I started farming, and that's where I started apprenticing with Elliot. A little piece of that, but also having discussions about key insights, innovations, bringing guest speakers, and providing an audience for them, and also celebrations. So we're envisioning that right now with a couple other folks from the arts community up there. But that is a part-time, summer-only events, and as you can see in the picture prior, for those who aren't familiar with the farm, this is a picture taken during the fair. You can see the Ferris wheel over there in the background. So we're sort of in the part of town that is familiar with this type of energy happening. And one of the things that excites me about this particular property is that there's a lot of spaces to build a sort of theater in the woods type, theater in the farm type space. And so if you're like me, any farm you walk through, you instantly think, where can the bread and puppet style story be told? Where can the stage go? Not everyone is like me, I realize, but I can't help it. This is a view. This is Scott Howell in the image here with Blue Hill or Anawanjo in the background. and really grateful to Scott for his years of stewardship of that property. Just to discuss a little bit about the management plan, we are actively recruiting advisory board members and trying to, I've been living in Southern Maine since 2016, and a lot has changed in Blue Hill and the peninsula since I left. A lot is the same, but a lot has changed as well. And so actively trying to reintegrate with individuals and folks who share the passion for this type of approach to the farm, and build out the organizational structure. I anticipate, I'm not intending on managing all of this myself. I'm anticipating bringing in some talent, most of which I believe is already existing in the peninsula. I don't believe we have to go far to find talented and driven individuals. I think all of you probably have had your experience with that as well. And in terms of our advisory board, we're anticipating a smallish board at first, 5 to 7 members. A few have already been identified, but we are open to discussing with any of you who find passion in this type of work. This last picture is a picture of, you might be familiar, this is Tinder Hearth. This is Lake Larson's garden there in the backyards, if you've eaten pizza there. I'm really inspired by Lake's work, and of course by Tim and Lydia and what they've done at Tinder Hearth. I'm really excited to continue building relationships with them. And I just want to acknowledge their support for my vision over the years as well, and how what I'm proposing today would not be possible without their work, having worked so hard at what they do for the last decade and longer. And so we are at, how are we doing on time, Lander?
We're doing good. It's 4:42.
Oh, goodness, I went over by 2 minutes. I'm going to stop it there and open it up to questions. I know that was a lot, and I crossed a couple different disciplines. And so I do look forward to questions that can be clarifying. I'm going to stop my screen share and take it from there.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was absolutely fascinating.
Pleasure.
Super excited that we were able to have you on tonight to start learning more about your vision. And yes, please, anyone in the audience, type in a question in our chat box, or feel free to raise your little hand. Okay, so there's a question in the chat box. Jake or Lisa, do you want to take it first?
Sure. Bill, before we even started presenting, someone was curious about what kind of musician you are. And I don't know if that's multifaceted or not. So could you talk a little bit
Of course, of course it's multifaceted. You should know that about me by now. I'm a producer. I like to support others. I spend a lot of time, some of you know Bridget Isabella Semler. I spend a lot of time working with her and collaborating as a producer for her work. She's an incredible songwriter and poet, among the best that I've met. And that just gives you an example of the type of musician that I am. I work with songwriters and help them elaborate and develop a song from its seed to its final stage, and especially if they want to produce a finished work or publish a work. That's where I found my passion, and one of the reasons why I spent some time down in Portland, rather than staying in Blue Hill, which has been very hard, but fruitful. Yeah. But I play keyboards, I play organs, I play guitars. I'm not a percussionist, but I try to just fit the bill, no pun intended.
So we have another question from Aaron. They say thank you, and then also, have you been able to communicate at all yet with Penobscot or Passamaquoddy tribes on their interest in any collaboration?
I have been opening dialogue. As the short answer is yes. The long answer is there's a lot of work to do. It's a really complex and challenging these settler colonial issues. The way I understand, well, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but the short answer is yes. And I'm working with folks from the university and some young people, some young Penobscot citizens, and trying to understand if and how they would find safety, security, and value collaborating. I do believe, well, there's been a great webinar series hosted by Wabanaki Reach. I've recently been in touch with Heather Augustine from Wabanaki Reach, and they've been doing a program about decolonizing conservation communities. That I understand the Blue Heritage Trust has been participating in that, and that's been there's a lot of good work happening there, and helping folks become aware of the privilege, the historical and sometimes unaddressed tragedies that are still in the collective psyche, and such. And so there's a lot of work to there. And I really, it's not something that I anticipate being able to do alone. It's something that I know I need help with, especially if you are among us, the settler community, if you are a settler or you descend from settlers who are not native to this place. I myself am descendant of Northern Irish and Southern Italian descendants who immigrated to the state, to north of Boston after the Civil War, more at the turn of the century. And it's just, I feel like it's an incredible injustice that I've stepped into in the Northeast, and we have a lot of work to do. So the short answer is yes, and the follow-up is a plea for your collaboration on that matter, if it lights you up.
Bill, for sharing all of that.
You want me to take the next one?
Go for it, Lisa.
Okay, we have a question from Randall. Any candidates to farm crops this summer? If so, what kind of crops?
The short answer is 2022 is looking like a biomass improvement year. I'm certain, which means we're mowing and cover cropping is currently the plan. There's a few reclamation and sort of site issues. One is around water and the way water is moving through the property that we're trying to address first. That said, if you are a young farmer, I would love to talk to you, or an aspiring farmer or an old farmer who's starting a commercial type enterprise for the first time. I've run a farm enough to know that I can't do all of this that I'm attempting to do and run a farm and do a PhD at the same time. It's a lot. And so it really does depend on some of the young agrarian talent that is that we're so fortunate to have in Hancock County. And so please do reach out if you have a vision. I will say that we are, as an incubator farm, we are hoping to sort of move farmers through the property on their quest towards becoming independent in their own businesses or careers in whatever way that is. And we anticipate being able to support farmers who want to start farm businesses, but also who might be working in a research capacity for a piece of infrastructure, or maybe you're an inventor, or you're an app developer and you want to find a way to develop a piece of technology, that is relevant to your home community, or whatever that might look like. So there's a couple tracks that we want to try to promote here. And so that said, I love growing plants, and I have a passion for that, especially food. And so we really want to support as many food producers here as we can. So that's a long-winded answer to say, yeah, let's talk, Randall.
Lander, I think we have a hand raised.
Yes, we do. Okay. So I'm going to allow you to talk if you would like. I think you might just have to unmute yourself.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Sam Carolick here from Blue Hill. Great ideas, but I want to know how you're going to handle soil pollution. You're very close to the road. There are thousands of cars going there. We know that tires, the products from tires in the state of Oregon are killing the fish in the Columbia River. Also, are you testing your soils for any current pollutants, whether it's heavy metals or fluorochloride chemicals such as Teflon? And also in all your proposals for your projects for the greenhouses, are you considering the pollution from cement, metal, or your plastics?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. I'm a big fan of testing soil and soil testing, and pollution is an issue, especially we're starting to see some of these new forever chemicals really get into the way of our agricultural aspirations. This project, I feel like, is resilient. Our aspiration is for food production. The property is about 14 acres, not all of which is near the road. So we do anticipate on testing soils. I'm not interested in promoting food production in a toxic soil environment. And that's a really important part. A lot of those who are promoting hydroponic production and green energy solutions tend to shift away from soils. But what I've found is that a lot of that is often based on misinformation and marketing that really sort of take the focus away from soil because of fears that can be easily mitigated with a basic set of testing protocols. We're fortunate to have the University of Maine soil testing service here. It's an incredible resource. And then there's other labs for some of the more challenging chemicals. There is an issue on the farm with runoff from the stream that comes down from the mountain and from Mountain Road. Whether it's DOT sand or sand from construction and gravel from construction that has happened on the Mountain Road, a lot of it has run down and has collected on the property. And so we are looking at ways to mitigate that. That said, I mentioned there's some resilience to this project. One of the likely scenarios for how we're gonna produce agriculturally on the farm is pollinators, not food products, but plants that have a remediative effect on the environment in that they can clean soils that have been damaged. That is a challenging project and an area in and of itself, but one that I feel it's like we're not unique at all, and I feel like as a society we are very much behind the curve on understanding those regenerative and remediative cleanup mechanisms for toxic soils. And you know, well, I could go on, but it sounds like you might have understanding of that as well, and so I'd be happy to talk further with you about that.
Thank you, but consider also the salt coming off the
Oh, yeah.
roads, winter season that's changing the pH and possibly the ability to grow any plants that you want right there as a runoff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are approaches to remediating the soil or changing pH and that thing, but salt accumulation is a problem, especially in greenhouse production. But generally it would be separate if it's stream runoff. I mean, we're not going to place a greenhouse, for instance, on top of a stream runoff area. There would be a significant buffer between them. That said, if it's in the well or in the water and we're watering with that, then that's a different story, and those require very, very specific monitoring for sure.
Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Bill, for explaining all of that. We have some more questions in the chat box, so maybe we'll move on. It's 4:55, so about 5 minutes, and we'll try and cover the rest of these questions. Let's see. So we have a question about why form a separate 501c4? How is this IRS status different from a 501c3? And just wondering about having those different entities interacting with each other.
It's a good point, and one that I've tabled until I have the full board of advisors to help me answer that question. The intention is that the 501c4 is an educational organization with a particular educational mission. 501c3 is what you're familiar with as a general nonprofit organization. It doesn't have to be driven by an educational mission. So the 501c4 by design is important because we are targeting research grants. And that would be everything from like National Science Foundation to USDA small business research innovation grants. It makes us eligible for funding from areas that we wouldn't otherwise be competitive in. Secondly, the arts component of the organization is what we've sort of portioned off as a 501c3. It just strikes, while it's all, for me, it's all one and the same body of work, right? But that's not how it works in the American governmental system. Anyone who's a gig worker who's tried to file their taxes knows this. It's impossible and not tipped in your favor at all. And so the 501c3 for the arts component, it sort of portions that out and allows, whether it's your traditional, similar to like I can't think of the name of the Blue Hill Theater Company or the Surry Theater. The way that they would produce a program, solicit donations from Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, to support their program. To me, that's a different business than the work of researching technical agricultural systems, and it seems wise to separate them. So I might find, or we might find some new information that would change that. There's been talk about turning the whole thing into a for-profit endeavor. So it's really, but, I'm trying to really reflect here things that I've already learned from the community. I'm not trying to suggest that all of these ideas are original. They're not. They're convening resources, energy, and talent that already exists, and attempting to create a stronger platform for folks who are trying to do that work and build meaningful careers and meaningful ways of life, bringing that forward. So that is my hope. But I'm definitely not a tax or expert or an expert on the American legal system. So I look forward to following up with folks who are.
Thank you so much for answering that question, Bill. And may I just say, I think you did a great job of speaking to the distinction between those two nonprofit entities. We had a question about workshops from Robert. Any plans for animal processing, for example, in the future, and maybe sharing knowledge about that?
Absolutely. In terms of the workshop, for you, Rob, what I would suggest is that for this, we present it as the art of agricultural animal processing. And that is part of how we imagine the summer events going. I am not an expert in animal agriculture, but I would love, especially in the early years when we're working on soil remediation, it would be great to work with a grazer. In particular, whether that's sheep, cow, whatever, to help rehab the fields and also save me some mowing hours. I have a nice little herding dog. We can collaborate. It's going to be great. But in short, yes, Rob, it would be great to talk about that with you. You have a huge amount of knowledge and skill there.
Well, I bet that herding dog would be happy to have a job for sure.
Yes.
Lisa, we have one more question. Would you like to do the honor?
Absolutely. Okay. It says, thanks for the interesting presentation. Can you talk about the response from local farmers beyond Elliott to your vision for this property?
Sure. It's something that I don't want to answer a question with a question. I'm trying to gauge it from the folks I have heard from. I've found a lot of support. I've been in touch a lot with Joe Barrett through this process, and Joe has been an advisor for me in all things agriculture since I started fashioning myself as a commercial farmer years ago, and it's been helpful to talk with other farmers in the area. I can't say that I've talked with everybody. I haven't, and I do know that sometimes, from my experience, when farmers don't talk to you, it's because they don't want to, or maybe they don't like your idea. And so I'm very interested in hearing what works and what doesn't for people, trying to come at this in a non-competitive but supportive angle. For instance, we're not anticipating on hitting the market hard with, hundreds of pounds of Salanova lettuce in the winter. That would be competitive in a way that would, especially if we're coming at this as a research entity, that would give us an advantage that we're not looking to have. It doesn't serve the mission. That said, farmer interviews are really important because understanding where folks are at. I've been away from Hancock County for a better part of 7 years, and things have changed a lot since I left. And while there's a lot of similarity, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks around the state, there's a lot of new players in the Hancock County scene that I'm excited to plug into. So the short answer is not enough. And if there's connecting points and folks that want to reach out, I'm totally thrilled to take time to chat further. And part of the work of this spring is catching up with folks. Both of the what I refer to as the legacy farms, the Horsepowers, the King Hill, the Blue Hill Berry Company, the Four Seasons, but some of the farms that were coming of age when I first was around 20 years ago, and now count as legacy farms too, I guess. It's amazing how time changes. And there's new farmers as well. So again, please do reach out, and I do want to make sure that the work here is valued as best I can. I'm always a fan of the competitive spirit, but with dignity. I think there's a lot to be said about how to go about that, and comes from a lot of listening. So I'm open to hearing.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for sharing your visions and your intentions, and then fielding so many questions too in this early stage of everything coming together. We really appreciate that, and I'm sure it can be a challenge at times as you're trying to make everything work and just settling into a new place. So we really appreciate you taking the time to share all of this with us and with the community, and to be open to everyone's questions as well. So thank you so much for this evening. I'm noticing one last question, Bill, which maybe we could conclude with. What's the best way to get involved at this stage? Do you have an answer to that at this point, or?
At this point, we are currently scheduled. Well, we had a schedule. We were going to do some winter events, winter solstice event, but obviously with the pandemic, gathering in groups is not wise, and we haven't figured out what to do yet, other than to this was one outlet to say, hey, well, let's show up in the community and at least welcome folks virtually. But you can expect some notice of public engagement, be it virtual events or hopefully in person this coming year. And in the meantime, please do reach out to me directly. I can actually put my contact right here in the chat, and you can copy it and follow up with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill.
And take it from there. But I'm available. Stop by the farm if you see activity and people around. That said, I did just welcome my first child in October, and so we do have a newborn. So don't stop by if there's not activity around per se. But we're going to open up more and more, and we're excited to welcome folks in. And then I did just see that question about talking about what has changed in my perspective. It's a big question, and I. That's a big question. It's a nut that maybe we don't have time to crack right now, but I'd be happy to follow up with you. And there might be, is it the change that I'm noticing, or is it change that's I'm noticing anew, or is it the change that's always been there and I didn't see it as much before? But one of the things that I have seen in Hancock County that seems to be growing is young agrarians who move to these are like transient agrarians. Maybe they have roots there, maybe they don't, who move and want to stay. And what seems to be different now compared to 10 years ago is they have more opportunities too. I don't think it's nearly enough opportunity. If somebody wants to develop their career in Blue Hill, who's from there, I think we need to create more opportunities for that. And we need to lead with creating opportunities for Wabanaki people who may want that. However, there's a lot of agrarian talent that's there, and there's more opportunities, but still not enough.
Thank you, Bill. We have some thank yous in the comment boxes. You'll probably see. I think everyone really enjoyed your presentation, and we look forward to seeing how all of this unfolds.
My pleasure. Thanks all for joining.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Bill, again.
You're most welcome. Are we good? I didn't want to leave right away.
I think we're good. I have a recording
right.
of this, so if that's still okay with you, we'll put it up for people to view who weren't able to show up tonight.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll look forward to meeting you in person at some point.
I look forward to it. And yeah, congrats again on your newborn.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
All right. Take care.